Graph actually shows just how quickly his popularity has nosedived. He is sinking like the Titanic, and Labour are fearful of a monumental kicking in. You don't give power back to communities by cancelling elections, Angela. This is unbelievably rich coming from Labour. Over the weekend, Labour's very own Baroness Harriet Harman was all over the media saying that Nigel Farage and Reform were a threat to democracy. Angela Rayner has tried to spin this. She says this is all part of devolution and she's giving power back to the communities. Well, Reform MP Rupert Lowe struck back, stating the bleeding obvious.
3 minutes ago, Keir Starmer made an announcement that sent shockwaves through British politics. The newly minted Prime Minister, fresh from Labour's landslide victory, has just revealed a decision that even his closest allies didn't see coming. With the Conservative Party in tatters after their worst defeat in history and Rishi Sunak stepping down, Starmer has seized this moment of political upheaval to fundamentally reshape Britain's future. The question is, will this bold move cement his legacy or become his greatest regret? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. 3 minutes ago, Britain witnessed a political earthquake that few saw coming. Keir Starmer, standing at the podium with unnervingly steady hands, announced his government's decision regarding local elections, a move that has sent shockwaves through Westminster and beyond. The Prime Minister, whose honeymoon period ended almost before it began.
Well, I think people should be very concerned about reform because they're not just a threat to individual parties, but I actually think they're a threat to democracy because they are offering easy answers.
He's a complete fool. The only way that we could strike a good deal with the European Union in our current context is through a process of deregulation.
He can have no future, Starmer, if he carries on like this, can he? I know he's got 5 years, but really beyond that. I mean, he's a dead man walking already, isn't he?
Delivered the news with the clinical precision of his former legal career, but beneath the measured tone lay a decision that may reshape British democracy for a generation. Starmer's Labour, having swept to power on a wave of anti-conservative sentiment rather than pro-Labour enthusiasm, now finds itself navigating treacherous waters. The landslide victory that ousted the Conservatives after 14 years in power handed Starmer the keys to number 10, but also the poisoned chalice of a deeply divided nation. The Tories' electoral collapse left Rishi Sunak with little choice but to tender his resignation, his brief tenure ending in the party's most humiliating defeat in modern history. What makes Starmer's announcement so controversial is its timing. Labour's internal polling, closely guarded but leaked to select journalists, shows the Prime Minister's approval ratings in free fall. One senior Labour source, speaking on condition of anonymity, described the numbers as catastrophic, worse than we've seen for any PM this early in their term. The public, it seems, has quickly grown disillusioned with Starmer's leadership style, perceiving a gap between campaign promises and governmental action that has widened into a chasm. Against this backdrop of plummeting popularity, another political force has been gathering momentum. Reform UK, under the resurgent leadership of Nigel Farage, has capitalised on voter dissatisfaction with remarkable efficiency. Recent by-elections have seen Reform candidates securing unprecedented vote shares, particularly in traditional Labour heartlands, where economic anxiety runs high. This right-wing insurgency doesn't threaten Labour's parliamentary majority directly, but it represents something potentially more damaging, a growing legitimacy crisis for Starmer's government. Political analysts across the spectrum have been quick to condemn the suggested postponement of local elections. Professor Timothy Garton-Ash of Oxford University didn't mince words. This strikes at the heart of our democratic traditions. When governments start manipulating electoral timetables for partisan advantage, we enter dangerous territory. Even voices within Labour have expressed discomfort, with one backbench MP confiding, "This isn't what I came into politics for. We're supposed to be better than this." The economic context surrounding this decision cannot be overlooked. Rachel Reeves, breaking the glass ceiling as Britain's first female Chancellor, has painted a bleak picture of the nation's finances. "We've inherited an economy weakened by years of underinvestment and short-term thinking," she stated in her first major economic address. "The road ahead will require difficult choices." Many see the potential election postponement as a tactical move to implement unpopular economic measures without immediate electoral consequences, a political calculation that prioritises fiscal recovery over democratic principle. What makes this moment particularly significant is how it represents Starmer's definitive break with his carefully cultivated image. Throughout his opposition leadership, he positioned himself as the adult in the room, the responsible steward who would restore integrity to British politics after the tumult of the Johnson and Truss years. This announcement shatters that narrative, replacing it with something more complex and potentially more cynical. As political commentator Isabel Hardman noted, this is Starmer's crossing the Rubicon moment. He's abandoned the pretense of being above political manoeuvres. The Labour leadership's private concerns about reform, UK's growing appeal, help explain the timing. Internal strategy documents, glimpsed briefly by a Westminster correspondent, reportedly highlight existential concerns about the next round of local elections. With Reform UK polling at 18% nationally and significantly higher in key Labour constituencies, party strategists apparently fear a democratic repudiation that could fatally undermine Starmer's authority and trigger calls for his replacement. Constitutional experts have raised alarms about the precedent this sets. Dr. Catherine Haddon of the Institute for Government warned, once you start interfering with established electoral cycles for partisan advantage, you're on a slippery slope. Other governments with less benign intentions might exploit the same mechanisms. This concern has resonated across party lines, with former Conservative Justice Secretary Dominic Raab and Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey finding rare common ground in their criticism. The question that haunts this controversy is whether Starmer's gambit represents calculated self-preservation or a genuine, if clumsy, attempt to create space for necessary reforms. Those sympathetic to Labour point to the genuine economic challenges facing Britain: stagnant productivity, crumbling infrastructure, and a healthcare system in crisis. These problems, they argue, require solutions that may be temporarily unpopular but ultimately beneficial, solutions that might be impossible within normal electoral constraints. The political gamble Starmer has taken with this rumoured election interference represents more than just a tactical move. It's a defining moment that will etch his name in history, one way or another. Those who support him might frame it as necessary stabilisation during turbulent times, while detractors see it as nothing less than democratic manipulation. What makes this moment so pivotal is how it will shape Starmer's legacy. Will future generations remember him as the bold reformer who modernised Britain's political landscape, or as the leader who began eroding its democratic foundations? The British public's verdict on these actions will ultimately write this chapter of political history.